Good morning. So this morning I actually want to share a story within John about Jesus, and it's going to be John chapter 8, and it'll be verses 1 through 11. And this is the story of the adulterous woman. But Jesus went to the Mount of Olives. Early in the morning, he came again into the temple, and all the people were coming to him, and he sat down and began to teach them. The scribes and the Pharisees brought a woman caught in adultery, and having set her in the center of the court, they said to him, "Teacher, this woman has been caught in adultery in the very act. Now, in the law of Moses commanded us to stone such women. What then do you say?" They were saying this, testing him so they might have grounds for accusing him. But Jesus just stooped down and with his finger wrote on the ground. But when they persisted in asking him, he straightened up and said to them, "He who is without sin among you, let him be the first to throw a stone at her." And again he stooped down and wrote on the ground. And when they heard it, they began to go out one by one, beginning with the older ones. And he was left alone. And the woman, where she was, in the center of the court, straightening up, Jesus said to her, "Woman, where are they? Did no one condemn you?" She said, "No one, Lord." And Jesus said, "I do not condemn you either. Go, from now on, sin no more." So, the Pharisees and the scribes were the rulers, the religious rulers of Jerusalem. And they, in my opinion, they had come through generations to this point. They have come to become very legalistic to the law of Moses. Plus, I also think they enjoyed the power that they had through the law of Moses too much. Because they failed to realize that they sin just as anyone else. They failed the law of Moses as anyone else. But their pride had blinded them so they don't see it. So, you got Jesus teaching people about the Word, about Himself, about salvation, about the love of God, the love of the Father. And these men are dragging this poor woman who got caught sinning into the middle of publicly. Let's face it, stood her in there publicly in front of Jesus, and trying to get him to say, trying to get him to directly violate the law of Moses by, I guess, I think they were trying to get Jesus to tell them not to stone her. Thereby, he would be breaking the law of Moses that they rule by, because Jesus didn't command, them to stone her to death for breaking the law. And Jesus, just sat there and I would love to know what he was writing on the ground. That's going to be one of those mysteries that we'll probably never get to find out. But he's just, doing his little thing, and they kept bugging him. So finally, he got up and flat out told him, "All right, let the first one of you who hasn't sinned against the law throw the first stone at her." Basically just as simple as that. Sat down, went stooped back down and just went back to writing whatever he was writing on the ground. And the fact that these men actually at that moment realized that not one of them has not sinned could not throw a stone, because if they did, then they were dictating to themselves and to the world that they were God and they had the right to judge this woman. And they all knew that they couldn't. So it wasn't that the Pharisees didn't believe they didn't sin. They knew that they sinned. But I think they felt that they were better than everybody else because they probably sinned. In their mind, they sinned less than all the others. But when Jesus gave that simple statement, it convicted them. They knew that they were sinners. They knew that they sinned, and they knew that they weren't God, and therefore they had no right to judge this woman. And the funny thing is the oldest ones were the ones who started leaving first. The ones who ruled by the law, pushed the law the longest, were the first to leave. And then once every last one of them was gone, Jesus stood up, asked the woman, where'd they go? Did no one throw a stone at you, basically? And she's like, no one did. And so he's like, it's like, then I'm not going to condemn you either. Go and sin no more. So in this last statement that Jesus said to him also affirms that while he was on this earth, I mean, he said it throughout the gospel, while he was on the earth, he wasn't there to judge or condemn anyone at that point. He was there to reach and save the lost, to get men ready to be reapers of the harvest, to bring the people back to God. And also to fulfill the prophecy of being the sacrifice that reconciled man to God through his life, his death, and his resurrection and his ascension. So I think it's a kind of a very beautiful story about Jesus. One, Jesus' love. And two, about how Jesus, with a word, convicted all those Pharisees that, they had no place to judge and condemn somebody because they themselves also sinned. So, and that's where the lesson comes in. We need to be mindful before we're quick to try to judge or dictate an edict on someone, that we're not guilty of the same thing or something else. We're not God. We're not Jesus Christ. It's not our place, basically. So with that, I love you guys, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.